All right, so finding your seat, taking your seat. You might choose to close your eyes. You might choose to keep your eyes open. And then just a moment or two, we kind of started with maybe just a little bit of bringing mindfulness to one another, to seeing each other, just noticing each other. And so as you're settling in here, you might just kind of shift that attention inside. So maybe that's noticing the breath. It might be noticing really any sounds, sensations, movements that are here, and can include whatever thoughts are here. And just a moment or two to arrive. Perhaps with that simple intention, just to really set down, to bring this non-judging awareness to our experience, which means really in a way surrendering the weapon or the armor of judgment. And so we just see what feels possible today. Really just let the practice, the movements and the breathing and all the things we'll do together, just letting it be a way to again and again bring that quality of mindfulness, of observation, and maybe even sensing the warmth that can arise from that simple practice, the nourishment you can offer yourself with that. So perhaps just another moment, if you're aware of the breath, you might notice your inhale and exhale and just hold a little bit of space inside to really honor whatever your own reasons are for showing up today. Just really honoring that, acknowledging that. And sometimes it's just an inquiry. It's just an expression of interest in what's important to you, even if you don't know right now. With your next exhalation, you might just bow your head. So just let the head tip forward and maybe just a moment to really feel the weight of the body resting on the earth. Just to bring some mindfulness to that connection. And if your eyes were closed, you could open the eyes. And then let's find an inhale just to invite the arms to rise up and overhead. And you could explore various positions of the arms overhead. They might be more forward, they might be wider, maybe narrower. Just a moment to kind of explore, observe, and just reach as you breathe in. So from that heaviness, the weight of the body surrendering down to the ground, that reaching, rising, expanding as you breathe in. And then let's just twist to the right. So exhaling, right hand maybe comes to the floor behind you. Left hand can come to the right knee. And just a breath or two here. So a breath just rising, expanding, lengthening on the inhale, whatever that is right now. And then exhale, just maybe looking over the right shoulder. It could be even just this feeling of kind of sinking back, leaning back a little. And then inhaling, let's let the arms rise and maybe the gaze follows back to the center. And then turning to the left. So you might place your left hand on the floor behind you and your right hand to your left knee, and just a moment to settle and breathing in whatever the fullness of the inhale is right now, just observing it, noticing it, feeling it. And the exhale, sinking back. Maybe there's a turning of the head and almost a leaning back just a tiny bit. And then let's inhale, let the arms rise and reach back up and overhead. And one more gesture from here, seated, just folding forward over the legs. So maybe the hands kind of touch the floor first and then the torso follows. Whatever works. It can take more than one breath. And maybe just for a moment, really sensing the intention to surrender, even if it's just for a moment, the kind of the armor or maybe even the weapon of judgment here as you meet yourself on your mat today. Just cultivating that quality of mindfulness, offering it inwardly. One more exhale. Maybe even sensing the warmth of it. Let it be a loving gesture. And then on the inhale, you could let the arms rise and reach and lift back up and overhead. And just bring the arms wide and down, exhaling. Okay, let's roll down onto our backs for a moment. And when you get down onto your back, maybe another moment to just observe the body resting on the earth, just that feeling of the weight of the body resting on the earth. Maybe feet wide, knees together. And you could even explore if there's a gesture like a hand or both hands on the belly or one hand on belly, one hand on heart. If there's a gesture that you can make to communicate your intention, just offering a moment for that. Just sinking into the support of this moment as you exhale and release the weight of the body into the earth. Good. And then let's bring our arms to our sides and feet a little bit closer together. Let's take right ankle onto left thigh, just for a kind of like a reclined pigeon. And you could either keep your left foot on the floor and just explore whatever is here with you. You could hug your legs in. Maybe I like to clasp my hands behind the left thigh. See what works. And you could add movement. You could be still, perhaps observing the breath. So this intention to offer mindfulness in the body, in the breath, there's a way that it's really an intimate, but also a spacious gesture. So it kind of feels like listening, feels like a receptiveness to the present moment. Let's find one more breath, just exhaling all the way to whatever the completion of that exhale is for you right now. And then we'll place the left foot down, place the right foot down. And then we'll just switch sides. So left ankle on right thigh. See what that feels like, a moment to observe. And then if you'd like, you could hug your legs in. If you'd like, you can keep your right foot on the floor. And maybe you're moving, maybe you're being relatively still. Perhaps some awareness of the breath here again. Let's just observe, if possible, the fullness, whatever the fullness of your next inhalation is. The exhalation, and with it, if there are kind of habitual ways of resisting this moment in the body, maybe part of that can soften a little bit and surrender to the earth. Just that exhalation. And then right foot down and left foot down. So hips on the ground. And then let's stretch the legs out onto the floor in front of you and stretch the arms away from the legs. So as you're reaching, you might hug your legs together and kind of ground through the backs of the legs. Another breath, inhaling. And I kind of like to stretch the right side and the left side, kind of wiggling up out of the waist. And then exhaling, let's bring the right leg up, straight up to the ceiling, and maybe clasping the hands onto the right leg anywhere. And you're also welcome to grab your big toe. You're welcome to use a strap. So there's, obviously many ways you could go about this. And the leg could be straight, it could be bent. Just see what's going to work today. The left leg, maybe it's outstretched. If that doesn't work for you, you could bend your left knee and place that foot on the floor. So let's find whatever the fullness of your inhale is right now, just exploring that, and maybe with it is some lengthening of the legs, just that feeling of reaching through the legs. And then exhaling, let's just lift the head and shoulders. So bowing the head towards the knee, and then stay here and breathe in again. Stay here and breathe out. One more time. And then inhale, just rest the head down. And then we're gonna explore taking that right leg out to the right. So sometimes I like to just place my elbow on the floor and let my forearm and my hand kind of be a little bit of a kickstand for the right leg here. Maybe it comes lower, maybe it doesn't come that far. Just see what works today. Observing, laying down the weapon of judgment for a moment, just being with the present moment experience. Noticing it. One more exhale. And then let's squeeze the right leg back to the center. Inhale. And then one more time, maybe just that knitting of the navel down, bowing of the head to the knee, squeezing the leg in. And then inhale, resting the head down. And exhale, releasing the right leg all the way out. Good. And then inhale, let's reach the arms away from the legs again. And maybe you like to kind of shift, wiggle a little bit side to side, stretching long. And then exhaling, bringing the left leg up, maybe holding on to the leg with your hands, maybe grabbing the toe, maybe using the strap. And just a breath or two to settle into this, maybe sensing that lengthening of the legs, whether the right leg is bent or outstretched, whether the left leg is bent or straight. And one more inhale, just opening. And then on the exhale, maybe you lift and bow your head towards your knee, head and shoulders lifting, and stay for a breath. Just deepen into it a little bit. One more exhale. And then inhale, head coming down. And then exhale, just let the left leg start to drift out to the left. And it could be any amount. So I'm just kind of propping my left leg with my left hand and elbow and forearm. It might come lower than that. It might not come that low. So just explore it, observe it. And so a natural kind of thing that happens with being attentive is not just the caring, not just the warmth, but also a responsiveness. One more exhale. And then let's bring that leg back to the center. Inhale. And then exhale, another bow to the knee, just one breath out, knitting the navel down. And then inhale, resting the head down. And then exhale, releasing the right leg out to, the left leg out to meet the right leg. Inhale, stretching arms away from the legs. Stretching long. And then let's exhale, bring the arms to our sides and walk the feet in just so that they're comfortably close to the sitting bones. And we're going to do this kind of movement in and out of bridge pose, and we're going to move the arms as well. And actually, most of the movement is with the arms, and it takes a couple of breaths to do a whole cycle. So just take your time with it. Feet on the floor, and as we inhale, let's just lift the hips and stretch the arms straight up to the ceiling. And then as you exhale, you could let your arms kind of drift back and reach alongside the ears on the floor behind you. And then just start to bring the arms back up, reaching straight up to the ceiling, inhaling. And then exhale, the arms and the hips come all the way to the floor together. So everything back to the starting position. And then again, inhaling, hips rising, arms reaching straight up to the ceiling. Exhale, just let the arms keep moving and reach alongside the ears. The hips stay lifted the whole time. Inhaling, just bringing the arms back up to the ceiling, straight up and overhead. And then exhale, everything comes down together. We're going to do that one more time. Inhale, rising, lifting, reaching straight up. Exhale, the hips are still lifted. The arms keep moving and reach alongside the ears. And then inhaling, the arms reach straight up to the ceiling again. And then all the way to the floor together. The hips and the arms touch down at the same time. Good. Just a moment to pause. Observe. Good. Let's bring the legs up. So let's stretch the legs straight up to the ceiling. And they don't actually have to be straight. So if the knees need to bend, that's not a problem. And then arms can reach alongside the ears, maybe with the palms touching, although that's not necessary. And I just like to kind of feel a little bit of the legs hugging together, and widening the back of the pelvis by wrapping the outer hips towards the navel. Sometimes a little bit of an internal rotation of the legs can support that feeling, that engagement, and a drawing in below the navel. See if you can feel into that without flattening the lower back completely. So that curve might get a little bit smaller, but it doesn't go away completely. So let's breathe in, just reaching through the arms and legs. And then on the exhale, the head and shoulders and the arms will lift and turn to the right as the left leg hovers. And then inhale, come back to the starting position. Squeeze the legs together, arms reaching alongside the ears. And then exhale, lift and reach to the left as you hover the right leg. And then again, come back to the center, inhale. Exhale again to the right, curling in, twisting and reaching. Inhale, squeezing back to the starting position. Exhale to the left, lifting and reaching to the left, hovering the right leg. Inhale back to center. A couple more on each side. Exhale to the right, curling in, knitting the navel down, widening the sacrum. Inhale back to center. Exhale, lift and reach to the left. Good. Inhale, center. This time, one more time on each side, nice and slow. So we're exhaling to the right, and we're going to stay for an inhale. Try to imagine lengthening the legs. Stay for another exhale. And then inhale, come back to the starting position. And one more time with that extra breath, exhaling, lifting, and reaching to the left. Stay for an extra breath, inhaling. Stay and deepen a little bit as you exhale. And then inhale, squeeze back to the center. And exhale, just let the knees drop into the chest and maybe pause there for a moment. If you prefer feet on the floor, that's totally fine. Wherever you are, just one more breath, whatever the fullness of the inhale is right now, and the completeness of the exhale. Let's place the feet on the floor again. And then again, we're going to do 3 cycles of that lifting and lowering out of Setu Bandhasana. So inhaling, lifting the hips, reaching the arms straight up. Exhaling, let the arms drift back and reach overhead. And then inhale, the arms rise again. And then exhale, the hips and the arms lower to the floor together, back to the starting position. Again, inhale, rising, reaching straight up. Exhale, let the arms keep moving and reach overhead. And then inhale, they come straight up and overhead again, straight up to the ceiling. And then exhale all the way back to the floor. One last time, breathing in, lifting the hips, arms reaching to the ceiling. Exhale, the arms reach back alongside the ears. Inhale, stretch the arms straight up to the ceiling again. And then lower the hips and the arms as you exhale. Good. One more kind of core connector here on our backs. So let's lift the legs so that the knees are bent 90 degrees and right up over the hips. And so the knees are bent this time. See if you can just pause and kind of feel a little bit that hugging of the legs together. And you might notice that you want to pull your knees in. Let them be right up over the hips. Just play with that a little bit. A little bit of hugging the legs together. If you feel any tightening in the groin, see if you can release that and wrap the outer hips toward the navel, which might feel like some broadening of the right side and the left side of the sacrum as you draw in below the navel. Hands behind the head, elbows wide if you can. Inhale here. So you might choose to just breathe here and rest intermittently, touching the feet to the floor, or you can add this movement 3 times on each side. So inhaling, this is the starting position. Exhale, we'll bring left elbow and right knee towards each other as we hover the left leg. And then inhale, come back to the starting position. And then exhale, right elbow to left knee as the right leg hovers. And then inhale back to the starting position. 2 more on each side. Exhale, left elbow to right knee. Inhale back to starting. Exhale, right elbow to left knee. Inhale back to starting. 1 more time each side. Exhale, left elbow to right knee. Inhale, center. And exhale, right elbow to left knee. Good. Inhale, center. And then exhale. Let's touch feet to the floor, maybe feet wide and knees together. Could be a gesture of care, maybe the hand on the belly and the hand on the heart, or something else. Can you communicate the intention of mindfulness, which is just to bring a kind of non-judging awareness to the present moment? Perhaps even sensing the warmth, the nourishment of that gesture. And exhale to surrender the weight of the body into the earth. Let's come up and around into tabletop. So you could roll to the side, you could rock right up and over your shins, whatever works today. And if you would like or need any padding under your knees, just take a moment for that. Maybe a pillow or a blanket. And as you're arriving on your hands and knees, we'll just have a few rounds. I'll talk us through 3 rounds of cat, cow, and I'll talk through that. But if you would like to move in a different way as you breathe, that's completely fine. You could explore what works for you. So on the inhale, you might roll the shoulders back, arch the back, and look up. And as you exhale, you might curl in, round your back, tuck your tail in your chin. And then again, breathing in, maybe rolling the shoulders back, arching the back, looking up. And then breathing out, curling in, rounding, scooping the belly, bowing the head. 1 more time, inhaling, just rolling the shoulders back, arching the back, looking up. That's cow pose. Exhaling, curling in 1 more time, scooping in, rounding, pressing into the hands, into cat pose. And then let's come into neutral and just pause. So let's start with our forearms on the floor and step the feet back. So you're welcome to, this is for forearm plank. You're welcome to touch one or both knees down if you want a little bit more support, or you can have your knees lifted. So see what's going to work today. And then this is challenging, but see if you can bring some mindfulness. So rooting the elbows down, and almost you might imagine hugging the arms together gently without moving them. And then feel into the legs, maybe engaging the upper legs, lifting the inner thighs, wrapping the outer hips down. Another breath, whatever the fullness of your inhale is right now. And then let's touch the knees down. If they're not already, lower the hips down. Exhale. So setting up for Sphinx pose, we'll have the elbows under the shoulders, the palms and the forearms down. And then just reaching the legs back and down gently. Just see what is possible to observe as you rise from the legs into the torso. So there might be this wrapping of the outer hips down, or maybe I should say more around and in towards the navel to widen the back of the pelvis, to make space in the back body, to lift below the navel. And then rooting into the elbows to start to lift and broaden the collarbones and the armpit chest. Rising up, another breath, just receiving the fullness of the inhalation. And then the exhalation, just settling, sinking all the way down to the ground.
I like to stack forearms and rest the forehead down. You can explore what works for you. One more full exhalation, just breathing out, surrendering the weight of the body. So you might observe sometimes this resistance, just this resistance in the body to the present moment. So you might invite that to soften as you find your next exhale. So from here, let's rise back into tabletop. And we're going to do one more round like that, but this time we're going to do high plank. If you prefer forearm plank, you can repeat what we just did, or you can step your feet back into high plank. And of course, you can have one or both knees on the floor for this as well. So we'll play around with kind of pressing into the hands, turning the elbow eyes forward, maybe even this feeling of like a little bit shrugging the shoulders as you engage the chest, and then inner thighs lifting, outer hips wrapping down and in towards the navel, drawing the front ribs in. One more inhale. And then exhale, you can touch your knees down if they're not already, and lower all the way to the floor. This time, let's stretch the arms out onto the floor in front of you and rest your forehead down. One more exhale here on the belly. And then as we inhale, let's lift the legs, lift the arms and the chest. As you exhale, palms are facing the floor, but the arms are lifted. Bend the elbows like cactus arms and just pull the hands back or pull the arms back. Keep the legs lifted if you can. Inhale, stretch the arms forward. We're gonna do that 2 more times. Exhale, pull the elbows back like cactus arms. 1 more time. Inhale, stretching the arms forward. Exhale, pulling the elbows back, lifting the chest. Now stay here. 1 more inhale, just reaching the elbows wide, lifting the collarbones. And then exhale, just settle and soften all the way to the floor. Just 1 more breath in and 1 more breath out, just observing, surrendering, really receiving this moment into your body. From here, let's rise into tabletop again. And then you could move towards puppy pose, towards child's pose. Perhaps you move right into downward facing dog. So kind of feel into it. Maybe you go right into down dog. Maybe you pause and rest a little lower to the floor at first. Maybe you stay low. And just remembering that tabletop or puppy pose or child's pose are all very easy kind of alternatives to downward dog. Or what I mean by easy is they're easy to put in place of downward dog without disrupting your flow. And you could do that at any time as we practice. So let's find 1 more cycle of breath here before we transition, just whatever the fullness of the inhale is right now. The completeness, the following of the exhale all the way down. And then let's start to bring the feet to the hands and find a refreshing breath in, just maybe coming halfway up. And it's okay if the knees are bent, just lengthening the spine, looking up, and then releasing all the way down, exhaling, bowing the head. And then inhaling, standing up, circling the arms overhead, maybe leaning back, looking up. And then just bringing the arms wide and down, exhaling back to Samastitihi, or arriving in Samastitihi, I should say. So right here, this equal standing posture, you could play with that a little bit. Standing here, just in this moment, balanced between all 8 directions. Up, down, front to back, side to side, past and future.
So we're going to build a few rounds of sun salutations, starting with the simple pattern and kind of adding to it. Feel free to personalize it, and I'll try to give specific options for that. So with the next inhale, let's just circle the arms overhead, maybe lean back and look up, reach up, and then exhale, bow forward over the legs. You can bend the knees on the way down if it's helpful. See what works. Just come halfway up on the breath in. So you might be gently hugging the legs, scooping the belly, coming halfway up to lengthen the spine. And then exhale, just releasing all the way down. Heavy head, light belly. Inhale, hugging and pressing with the feet rising and reaching the arms up and overhead, maybe leaning back, looking up. And then arms wide and down, just back to equal standing, exhaling. So we're going to build on that. Breathing in, reaching the arms up, leaning back, looking up. We're going to add a side bend here. So right arm can drop and lean to the right. And then inhale, lift back up, right arm rising to meet the left arm. And then exhale, left arm can drop and leaning to the left. And then inhale, rising, maybe leaning back, looking up. And then exhale, release and bow all the way down over the legs again. Coming halfway up, so you might touch your shins or your thighs and really lengthen your spine. And then exhale, palms to the floor and step to high plank. Let's touch the knees down here and then inhale into cow pose. So we just arch the back and look up. And then exhale could be downward dog or puppy pose or child's pose. So you decide. And if there's another thing that works better for you, then explore that. Receiving the fullness, whatever the fullness of your inhale is right now. And as you're breathing, especially with the exhale, you might explore how the legs are meeting the torso. Can you bring this kind of intimate but spacious attention? So there's a deepening of the groin, opening of the back of the pelvis as the belly lifts deeply to support you from the inside. One more full exhalation wherever you are. And then let's bring the feet to the hands and find a lengthening breath, coming halfway up. So maybe hands to the shins or thighs, lengthening, looking up. And then exhale, releasing, bowing all the way down over the legs. And then inhale, standing up. So the legs hug and press down. Circle the arms up, maybe lean back and look up. And then arms wide and down, exhaling to equal standing. One more, adding two more things in. So as you breathe in, circle the arms up. Maybe you'd like to interlace your fingers with the pointer finger pointing up. Exhale, leaning to the right. So you could drop the right arm if you prefer to keep the hands apart, or you could have the hands together and keep them both lifted. And then inhale, come back to the center and side bend to the left, exhaling. So maybe you keep hands together or you could drop that left arm. And then inhale, rise back to center, maybe leaning back, looking up. And then releasing and bowing over the legs, exhaling. Up and over the hips as you bow. Coming halfway up, breathing in. So really lifting the chest to receive that inhale. And then exhale, stepping back to high plank. Maybe you touch your knees down right away for tabletop. You could inhale into cat pose or right into upward facing dog. And then exhale, rolling back. Maybe it's child's pose or puppy pose or downward facing dog. Receiving an inhalation and an exhalation. Offering that exhale. So if you're in child's pose, you could also do this. I'll talk us through it in down dog first. So maybe you inhale up onto your toes if you're in downward dog, and then you could turn your knees and toes to the right, bend the knees and look under the right armpit for a little bit of a side stretch. If you're in child's pose, you could take your right hand in front of your left hand
and sink the hips towards the heels. Feel that opening on the right side. One more exhale. Inhale, come back through the center. So if you're in dog pose, just rise to the toes and turn them parallel. And then exhale, turn the knees and toes to the left. Bend the knees, look under the left armpit. Maybe if you're in child's pose, left hand in front of right hand. One more full exhalation, just feeling deep into the core of the body with your breath out, just observing. And then inhale, coming back to the center, softening, settling, exhale. Let's bring the feet to the hands and find a refreshing breath in, coming halfway up. And then releasing, bowing all the way down, exhaling. And then rising, inhale, circling the arms overhead. Maybe there's a natural leaning back and looking up. And then arms down and just arriving here, right here in this moment. Fully awake. You're going to keep building on that basic pattern. So as you inhale, bend the knees, reach the arms up and overhead. This is Thunderbolt pose, Utkatasana, just a flash of here. And then exhale, release and bow all the way down over the legs. And then breathing in, a little bit of hugging the legs together, lengthening and looking up. And then exhaling, fingertips down. Let's step the right foot back and touch the right knee down. So if you need a padding, like a blanket or a pillow under the knee, just give yourself a moment for that. And then you can rise either hands, palms down on the left thigh, or maybe arms circling up and overhead. So see what's going to work today. Maybe a little bit of both. And so maybe you kind of like to rise and reach through the right hand, reach through the left hand to come up out of the waist, to feel that opening of the front, back, and sides of the torso. One more breath, rising to the inhale, the fullness of the inhale, whatever that is right now. And then exhale, let's bring the hands to the floor. You can either step into tabletop or downward facing dog. And you can always add movements if you like up dog and all that stuff. Let's find an inhale here and an exhale. From either down dog or tabletop, let's press, lift, and reach the right leg back behind you and maybe up. And then exhale, the right foot comes forward to the mat between your hands. And if your left knee is not already down, you touch the left knee down and then rise onto the right thigh or reach the arms up and overhead. So sometimes it's nice to pause with the hands low, get grounded, and then breathe in and circle and reach up. And maybe just this kind of moment, I like to kind of reach through the right arm, reach through the left arm, drop the front ribs, widen the sacrum, and feel that even opening front, back, and sides. One more inhale. And then as you exhale, bring the hands to the floor, framing the right foot, maybe stepping the left foot forward and folding over the legs. And then come halfway up. Inhale. Release and bow all the way. Exhale. Let's bend the knees, circle the arms overhead. Inhale, Utkatasana. And then arms down, legs straight. Exhale, back to Samastiti. Again, inhaling, let's bend the knees, any amount of bend in the knees. Circle the arms up, look up. Exhale, release and fold over the legs. Inhale, just hugging the legs, scooping the belly, lengthening, looking up. Exhale, fingertips down. Let's step the left foot back and touch the left knee down. So again, let's start by maybe just lifting up palms on the right thigh for a moment to get grounded. And then you could inhale, circle your arms up if you like. Exhale, you could bring your hands behind your back, interlace the fingers, and then kind of drawing the front ribs in. Maybe the elbows even stay bent here. And lifting up under the armpits, so the whole torso rising and expanding. And maybe it's possible to sink the hips forward and lean back a little bit. It might just be kind of a feeling of that opening. Just give yourself a moment to bring mindfulness, really just to observe.
One more exhale. Use the inhalation, if your arms are behind you, to release them and maybe reach up. And then the exhalation to bring the hands to the floor, framing the right foot. You can either step into tabletop, so the right foot would come back and the knee to the floor, or downward facing dog, or a little bit of both. Receiving whatever the fullness of your inhale is right now, just observing that breath. Whatever the completeness, the offering of the exhale is right now. Really letting the practice, the intention be both an intimate and a spacious offering to yourself. Let's find an inhale from either tabletop or dog pose to reach the left leg back behind you. And then exhaling, the left foot can step forward between the hands. You can touch the right knee down. And then hands coming up onto the left thigh, just to pause and get grounded on the exhale. Maybe the inhale, circling the arms up and overhead and really rising up out of the waist. And then you could exhale, bring your hands behind your back, interlace your fingers. And again, the elbows can be bent. They don't have to be straight. And you just explore how to reach down through your legs into the ground, rise up through the torso, through the core of the body, evenly through the torso to the crown of the head, opening the chest as you exhale. And maybe there's a sinking of the hips forward and a leaning back. It could just be kind of a feeling or imagining and not so much a movement. With your next inhalation, let's release the arms, reaching back up and overhead. And then exhaling, bring the hands to the floor, framing the left foot. Step the right foot forward and fold over the legs. And then come halfway up, inhaling. So really let the spine lengthen. And then exhaling, releasing, bowing all the way down. Let's bend the knees, sweep the arms overhead, inhaling, Utkatasana. And then arms down and legs straight, exhaling. One more cycle. So we'll start again with Utkatasana. We're going to hold it a little bit longer this time. So any amount of bend in the knees, circling the arms up and overhead. And this time, let's exhale, interlace the fingers behind the head. So the hands are holding the back of the head, and then draw the elbows towards each other so the arms are parallel and the elbows are pointing forward, kind of like a headstand position with the arms. Hugging in with the legs, releasing the groin, widening the back of the pelvis, reach up through the elbows. Opening the torso, maybe you lean back a little bit. Looking up maybe. As you inhale, you might stretch your arms up and look up, reach up. And then release and bow over the legs, exhaling. Inhale, hugging the legs, coming halfway up. Exhale, this time, let's place the palms to the floor, step both feet back, either to high plank or tabletop. You can inhale either to cow pose or up dog, and then exhale back to either down dog or tabletop, child's pose, somewhere in between. From either tabletop or down dog, let's press, lift, and reach the right leg back behind you, breathing in. And then step the right foot to the outside of the right hand and touch the left knee down. So the right foot is stepping wide this time to the outside of the right hand. And if you need padding under your left knee, just take a moment to include that. And then let's turn the right knee and toes out to the right. So angling the right toes and the right knee out to the right. Left hand can be on the floor or on a block, and then right hand can come to the right thigh. So we're kind of turning this into a twist. See if you can feel some energy in the legs, some lift below the navel, some wrapping of the outer hips towards the navel to widen the back body. One more exhale here. Maybe that feeling of turning and leaning back at the same time.
And then inhale, we'll come back to the center, both hands on the floor, and then step back either to tabletop or downward dog. Exhale. Let's just pause for a breath. Whatever the fullness of the inhale is right now, whatever the completeness of the exhale. And then other side, one more time. Let's have the left leg lift and reach on an inhale. And then step the left foot to the outside of the left hand. And if the right knee is not already on the floor, touch it down. Exhale. Add support or padding under the right knee as needed. And then maybe you turn your left knee and toes to the left hand on the left thigh, and right hand is either on the floor or maybe on a block. And so it's a low lunge kind of twist, and we can just kind of press into the left thigh with the left hand, draw the belly back. There's almost like this buoyancy in the hips, so they're not just heavy and sagging. And then maybe a sense on the exhalation of that kind of turning and leaning back. And then let's start to undo that, inhaling, turning forward, hands on the floor. And then exhaling, you can step into down dog or tabletop, maybe even child's pose. Somewhere that you can find a breath and observe for a moment. One more full breath, just exhaling all the way, observing that process of letting go, and then feet to the hands. And that breath in is maybe a lengthening breath coming halfway up. And then releasing and bowing all the way down, exhaling. Inhale, let the knees bend either a little bit or a lot, and sweep the arms overhead. And then keep the bend in the knees as you bring the palms into the center chest, exhaling. And again, it could be a tiny bend in the knees. It could be a deep bend. See what works for you today. So palms touching in front of your chest, knees bent. Inhale, just reach the arms out in front of you. And then exhale, draw the belly in, pull the right elbow back, and maybe look over the right shoulder. And then inhale, reach the right arm out to meet the left arm. And exhale, pull the left elbow back, look over the left shoulder. Again, to each side. Inhale, reaching forward. Exhale, pulling the right elbow back, looking over the right shoulder. Inhale, reaching forward again, last time to the left. Exhaling. Inhale, reaching the arms forward, maybe even up and overhead. And then standing up tall as you exhale, bringing the arms down and straightening the legs. So arriving here again in equal standing. Let's just pause for a moment. It's okay to close your eyes or settle your gaze and just observe. Just notice what it's like to be here in this moment. What matters to you in this moment? Might just sense the warmth and the care of that attentiveness flowing through you. And then let's open the eyes if they're closed. Inhale, drift the arms wide to the sides. Exhale, turn the thumbs down and the palms back and bend your elbows. So you might grab your opposite elbows behind your back. You might even just bring your fists together behind your back. Maybe you bring your palms together behind your back. So any of these options, and there's certainly more than I've named, just kind of finding the arms behind you. Let's step the left foot back. It's maybe a 2.5 or 3 feet distance between the feet. And then you might adjust by moving your right foot to the right a little bit if that helps you feel more steady on your feet. Right, so just a moment to really feel and bring some
awareness to body touching the earth here. Rising through the legs into the torso, maybe that scooping of the belly, widening of the sacrum, and rising to the collarbones, the armpit, chest, the crown of the head. Breathing in. And then breathing out, let's just come up and over the right hip and start to fold over the right leg. I like to do a little bit of turning the top of the right thigh out here, maybe even bending the knee a little bit or a lot to support that. And the knee can stay bent, it can straighten, see what works today. Just one more breath, a fullness or a completeness, I should say, to the exhale. And then let's take a little bit of a bend in the right knee. Start to come halfway up, inhaling. And maybe you bring your hands from behind your back, release that, and interlace the fingers, placing the palms down on the right thigh. Take a steady gaze with your eyes out in front of you. You could roll up onto your left toes and stay there. You could press and lift your left leg back behind you, any amount. This is for warrior 3. And then observe to whatever depth and kind of intimacy feels possible right now. Receive the spaciousness of that awareness, really expanding a little bit more free as you breathe in. And then let's touch the left foot back down if it came up, exhaling, and then a victorious breath in, rising up, reaching the arms up. And then exhale, let's bring the arms to our side, step the left foot in to meet the right foot. Inhale and exhale, pause. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Arms reaching wide, breathing in. Maybe turning the thumbs down, the palms back, bending the elbows, breathing out. Picking a variation of your arms behind your back. And then we'll take the right foot and step it back. Not a huge step. And maybe the left foot moves out to the left slightly to feel more steady, to feel more grounded. And then a breath rising. So the inhalation from the feet through the legs to the torso, the armpit, chest, the crown of the head. And then the exhalation, you can start to come up and over the left hip. Maybe the knee bends. Maybe the top of that thigh turns out just a little bit as you make your way over that left leg. Exploring really with the quality of mindfulness, with that non-judging awareness, really just the capacity to observe, to witness what it's like in this moment. One more exhale, maybe sensing the warmth of that gesture. And then an inhalation, you start to lift up halfway. So I like to take a little bend in the left knee to help lift the chest halfway. Release the hands from behind you, maybe interlacing the fingers, placing the palms on the left thigh, settling your gaze maybe on the floor out in front of you. You could rise onto your right toes and stay there. You could lift your right leg back behind you any amount. And then just arriving here with awareness. Another breath. Notice how it really frees you to be just who you are in this moment. One more inhale. And then exhale, let's touch the right foot down, grounding. Inhale, victorious breath, rising, lifting the arms, straightening the left leg, and then feet together and arms to your sides. Exhaling. Samastitihi. Okay, let's breathe in, circle the arms up and overhead, maybe lean back and look up. And then breathe out, come up and over the hips, folding down over the legs. Breathing in, just coming halfway up, lengthening. And then let's place the palms to the floor, step the feet back. We're coming into high plank, either with both knees lifted or knees on the floor. One or both knees on the floor, and just pausing here. Maybe a little bit of pressing into the hands, turning the elbow eyes forward, that little bit of shrugging the shoulders, lifting the inner thighs. One more inhale. And then exhale, you can lower with your knees first,
all the way to the floor if that's helpful. So come into your belly. And perhaps just a moment to stack the hands and rest the forehead down or the head to the side, whatever feels useful to you now. Maybe observing a breath, just that exhalation washing over you, surrendering the weight of the body into the earth. Surrendering if you can imagine it, surrendering the armor, the weapon of judgment just for this moment. Just connecting, opening, being who you are, seeing yourself. And then let's just belly down, slide the arms forward. So just like we did at the beginning earlier, I'm going to do this one more time. So as we inhale, let's lift the arms and the legs. And this doesn't have to be a giant lift, just whatever amount feels possible, lifting and hovering the arms and legs and chest. Exhale, just bend the elbows, pull them back with the palms facing the floor. And then reach the arms forward, inhaling, palms are turned down, fingers reach forward. Exhale, bend the elbows, pull back. One more time, reaching, inhale. Legs are hovering and lifted here too. Exhale, bend the elbows, pause, stay here, broadening, maybe lifting, inhale. And then exhale all the way down. From our bellies, let's rise to tabletop. And if it feels appropriate, you can sink your hips towards your heels for child's pose. And that's just any amount. And maybe it feels better to you to keep your hips right up over your knees and bring your forearms to the floor and then bow your head with a little more space in the knees and not so much bend. So see what works for you now, maybe puppy pose or child's pose for one more exhalation. Good. And then we're gonna come into seated. So you might just swing your legs to one side, bring your legs out onto the floor in front of you. And those legs don't have to be straight. They're just out in front of you. So they can be straight or bent. And then let's just bring the hands onto the floor behind your bottom. Maybe fingertips pointing towards you, maybe fingertips pointing away. And just kind of leaning back onto the hands. I like to kind of hug the legs together and press them down. And then we're just going to reach back into the hands. Lift the chest up. Maybe kind of gazing down the bridge of the nose as you tip the head back. And you don't have to tip the head back. That's something you can play with. Maybe you adjust the position of the hands or the bottom. And just a couple of breaths here. Just opening the chest. One more inhale. One more exhale. And then inhale, releasing that, just coming out of it. And then exhale. Let's open the legs wide. And it doesn't have to be super wide, just about 90 degrees wide. Upavista Konasana. So you might find that leaning back is better here. And if you're feeling really tight or constricted in this position, you might start and even stay in kind of the leaning back. So hands on the floor behind your bottom, leaning back onto the hands. And something you can try when you're here is just kind of what we just did, just reaching into the hands and almost tipping the pelvis forward, dropping the pubic bone down, and let that be kind of a way to start moving into the hips here. If it feels possible to sit up on top of your sitting bones, even if the knees are bent or straight or whatever, you can do that. And then we're just going to bring our hands to frame the right leg. So I'm turning my torso towards my right leg. And what happens when I do that is naturally my pelvis turns with my torso
And that means the left leg will roll in a little bit and the right leg will roll out. And I'm just going to allow that oscillation of the legs. And then as I allow the legs to roll and turn with my pelvis, I'm going to just really imagine that sinking into the groin here, that deepening of the groin, deepening, deepening there. As I'm deepening and sinking into the groin, that's on both sides, right and left. Then maybe an imagining of the right SI joint and the left SI joint broadening, widening, and the belly will naturally scoop and lift with that. I'm just sinking over that right leg to whatever extent I can based on that observation of the hips and the pelvis. And then maybe I come to a point where I just kind of pause and start to turn the legs to the neutral position. So the toes are just pointing straight up. And then just maybe sinking into that space. One more exhale. And then let's inhale, release it, turn back to the center. And then we'll do the same thing to the other side. So I'm turning my torso towards my left leg. Hands are on either side of my left leg. When I do that, my right leg naturally rolls in, my left leg naturally rolls out. I'm not going to try to correct that. I'm going to allow that and then just cultivate some intimacy and some spaciousness here. So whatever feels possible, maybe it's that feeling of the groin really just deepening, sinking into it. That opening of the right SI joint, the left SI joint as the belly lifts without losing the depth in the groin. You might come to a point where you just kind of pause and exhale and then invite the legs to neutralize, turn the toes straight up, and one more full breath, just exploring whatever space is here, just receiving it, really honoring it. And then inhale, release that. And then exhale, let's bring the legs together. So I kind of like bring my hands under my knees and bring my legs together before we lie down. Knees bent, legs together, just kind of zipping them up together. And I have my heels on the floor and the heels of my hands on my knees and just pushing into my hands until my arms are straight. So this is just a version of Navasana. Breathing here. This is challenging. That's okay. Observing. Maybe you release the hands and reach them on either side of the legs, inhaling. Exhale, pull the right elbow back, look over the right shoulder. Inhale, reach to the center. Exhale, pull to the left. Inhale, reach to center. Exhale, pull to the right. Reach to center, inhale, last time, pull to the left. Inhale back to center, rising to the collarbones, and then exhaling, rolling down, hugging the knees in. Let the knees sink in. Maybe you let the weight of the arms rest on the knees or the shins and rock gently. And see what works today, what feels useful today. Surrendering the weight of the body into the earth. So that might be a feeling, a felt sense that comes with that of kind of letting go of these habitual ways of resisting this moment. And then let's place the feet on the floor comfortably close to the sitting bones. One more round of Setu Bandhasana. So I'd like to begin this round by just inhaling a gentle arch of the back. So dropping the pubic bone, finding that depth in the groin and broadness of the abdomen. And then the exhale, you ground into the heels, move the pits of the knees forward and lift the hips. So you maintain that depth in the groin as you lift the hips and widen the back of the pelvis. And you might choose to interlace your fingers under you. And I kind of like to roll onto the tops of the shoulders, working the shoulder blades onto the back, See what's going to work for you today. Could just be arms at your sides or arms alongside the ears. Full breaths, receiving whatever the fullness of the inhale is right now. Whatever the offering of the exhale is right now. One more breath, breathing in, and then starting to come all the way down, breathing out. Let's just move the feet a little wider than the hips and the knees together and pause, maybe closing the eyes. A moment to observe. So you might like to have a reclined twist. You might enjoy some other stretches to prepare for resting. So you can just take a moment to explore whatever feels like the right thing right now. And then we're going to move into Shavasana, into rest for a few minutes. Yeah. When you move towards Shavasana, that could be, with props or maybe with your legs elevated. It could just be lying flat. So it's just another opportunity to engage in this practice of a kind of listening, the listening that naturally arises with mindfulness, with non-judging awareness, and sensing how that listening is both an intimate and refined, but also spacious gesture, caring gesture. Just by showing up again and again, it starts to really sink into you. And so we'll explore that as we rest. And so as you're settling, maybe closing the eyes, maybe exhaling through the mouth. Again and again, these opportunities to surrender the armor, the weapon of judgment, and just be who you are. A poem by Dana Faulds. I breathe in all that is. Awareness expanding to take everything in, as if my heart beats the world into being. From the unnamed vastness beneath the mind, I breathe my way to wholeness and healing. Inhalation, exhalation. Each breath a yes and a letting go, a journey and a coming home. You could choose to keep resting if you like, or perhaps as you're breathing the next few breaths, you feel some wakefulness in the body, and maybe the arms reaching alongside the ears, maybe the knees coming into the chest. You could roll to one side if you like. And sometimes it's nice to just have a moment resting there. You could rise and take your seat one more time. And as you come up, if you happen to look at your screen, that might be just another moment. It's just not a long time, but you just have a moment with the eyes open where you see others, see each other. And then maybe you close the eyes. And just another moment to kind of bring the quality of mindfulness inside. And perhaps with that, an inquiry as we close together, really sensing what feels important to me right now, or what matters to me right now as I move into the rest of my day or my week or my year, whatever feels relevant. And again, it's just an inquiry, an expression of interest, not a problem if there's no answer that comes with that question. And then the next part of it, just maybe sensing how mindfulness might serve you, how this ability to kind of set down the armor of judgment, and just observe, be attentive, really listen, how that might serve you and how it might serve others. Namaste. It's nice to see all of you. Really glad you're here.